Good evening. My name is Adam Castaneda, and I'm the director of the Houston Fringe Festival, a program of the Pilot Dance Project. I'd like to welcome everyone watching to night 2 of the 2020 festival and a happy election night. Our festival looks a little different because of our shift to an online format in response to the global public health crisis. This year, we filmed short works at the match and are presenting them through Zoom and Facebook Live to you free of charge. I'd like to thank my board of directors for their support and invaluable suggestions in producing this year's festival. And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention specifically Matthew Heberlein, who gave birth to the idea of incorporating panels into the format. The 2020 program is made possible by support from the Texas Commission on the Arts through the Arts Create grant and DanceSource Houston through a Groundworks grant. This is just a reminder that our closing night event, Anything Goes, will be a socially distanced live showcase held at the newly constructed Pet Theater. Only 25 seats are available and they can be purchased at houstonfringefestival.org under the events tab. I'd also like to point out that if you would like to donate to the Houston Fringe Festival in preparation for our 2021 season, you could do so by going to Eventbrite and searching Houston Fringe Festival. Tonight, we will be viewing and discussing the premiere of Brittani Broussard's Unwanted Wants II. Brittani Broussard is a performance artist based in Houston. She received her BFA from the University of Texas at Austin in 2013. Her work explores themes that alter the figure using the language of fashion, costuming, masking, and movement of the body. Brittani has exhibited work in Houston, Austin, Los Angeles, and Manhattan. So this is my 4th year directing the Houston Fringe Festival, and I can honestly say that one of the unexpected joys of the job is coming across artists and their work that I otherwise would not have known about. Tonight, I'm happy to be with Brittani Broussard, an artist that came to the festival during that first year of my directorship. I was so spellbound by the visual imagery of that piece, and I'm so happy that Brittani has participated several times throughout the years. So it's with great excitement that the Houston Fringe Festival presents Brittani Broussard's Unwanted Wants II. Wow, thank you so much, Brittany, for sharing this work, which, given the time that we're in and the fact that this is election night 2020, I get the feeling that this piece has very large implications. But before we get started, I wanted to introduce our two panelists this evening. First, we have John R. Stronks, an independent dance artist based in Houston. They is currently serving as the programs manager of Dance Source Houston and the office manager for the Houston Metropolitan Dance Center. And we also have Jeanette Joy Harris, who is a Houston-based artist, writer, curator, and speaker interested in the intersection of performance, political dialogue, and embodiment. So I also want to give a reminder to the audience, to those who are watching, you are more than welcome to drop a question in the comment section of the Facebook live stream, and our moderator will happily reveal those questions throughout the panel. So let's go ahead and get started. The first question is for Brittany, and it's related to your performance and your visual aesthetic. You know, since the first time I experienced your work, I noticed that shapes and the relationship between shapes are an important aspect of your work. I noticed the colors, and I still notice the colors. And there just seems to be an overall attention to design. So can you describe for us or clarify your visual aesthetic? And what are the sources or inspiration for these design choices?
Um, I don't like to put like a main thing, like my aesthetics is a certain thing, but I would say it's a little bit of avant-garde and kitsch because it's kind of to be unusual, experimental, but also it's kind of bright and like in your face and repetitive, has patterns and textures. So I would say like it's a little bit of both of those. Um, and for this performance, this is the part two. I did a first part and it was the same concept, but instead of the shapes and the objects, it was poster cards with the colors and the same emotions. And I had a sheer dress on, and I would put those cards in my dress if you can physically see the emotions inside of me. So this performance, part two, I wanted the objects to be more external than internal for the first, instead of the first one. Um, and so this piece is based on people, experiences, relationships that I no longer have, whether they're no longer in my life or have passed away. And it was based on how I'm dealing with that, the emotions I feel through that. And I wanted to show it in my body and how I navigate my life, how I do simple things like as of like walking and how I carry those emotions, how people view them, and how I feel them. That's what I would say. And I feel like a lot of my performances are based on my feelings, my expressions, my experiences with things.
Mm. Well, that brings us to tonight's piece. You know, I feel like watching it again before we just saw it, that that yes, you are totally mining personal experiences, especially with the words that you chose to work with in putting on your body. Um, but maybe I'm projecting, but I also feel like there's a larger commentary on society's relationship to these words as well. And with that said, I do feel like there is a political element to the work. So I'm just curious to know, you talked about, you know, the feelings that were your base source of inspiration. But after you completed Unwanted Wants I, what really spurred you to sort of investigate deeper and create Unwanted Wants II?
I I just wanted to, I guess, feel it more. Um, the first part was just like putting the cards in my dress so you can see it, but I wanted to actually feel it because I'm not only performing, but I'm also like it's like a therapy to me. It's also like something I'm releasing as well, along with what y'all are viewing. Um, So I didn't just want to just put the cards inside of me. I wanted to actually feel it myself, I guess, in a way to release it. I don't know. I guess um, I wanted to push myself as well as a performance artist. So I was thinking of a different way to convey what I was trying to say in a different form.
Mhm.
And I use a lot of objects for other artwork that I do, like the face sculptures. And this one I would call a body sculpture because I'm using more my body than my face.
Mhm.
So I wanted to just push myself mainly and to see what else kind of came out of it. Came out of the, the first performance, I guess. It's for me and it's for the audience.
Mhm. Thank you for that. I could feel that tension for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Um, is John online right now? Do we know?
I'm not sure. This is
Well,
Scott.
that's fine because I could feel this question to Joy. Um, so I was wondering, Joy, if you noticed anything interesting about the relationship of these words that Brittany uses within the context of the work. And for example, I really saw that her character was very much drawn to the word change. But after only a brief time wearing growth, she took those off and didn't really return to them. And for me, this is suggestive of, this desire for change that we all have, but a resistance to growth, which in my mind is a more clearly defined form of change, one that requires a lot of consciousness and a lot of work. Especially if we're talking about personal growth. So it's almost like the commentary here is that we want change, we desire change, but maybe we don't want to put in the effort to grow for growth. So I'm just wondering if you saw any relationships that stood out to you.
Sure. I was actually most intrigued by the fact that Brittany was able to take these different words and house them on her body at the same time. So rarely do we feel one particular emotion at a time. We feel multiple things, and it's oftentimes difficult to discern what we're feeling. And so that was probably the most compelling part for me. And I think that there is an evolution in terms of when she's engaging with with change or with power or what have you that seemed to unfold pretty organically, right? So there were certain places that she would go back to, like with the red bottle with rage, tying it and untying it and tying again. So there definitely seems to be some kind of abstract narrative that's going through. But that's what I was seeing. That's how I feel the words are acting together.
Mm. And I'm also wondering, and this is, I'll open up this question to both of you. And again, I can't stop thinking about the exact moment that we're in. We're in the middle of a hotly contested presidential election. I noticed that there was a resistance to the word and the object representative of power. And this is really interesting because I feel in a lot of ways, power is needed to alter the journey to the other words. So, in order to reach the kind of growth, the kind of change, the kind of contentment we want in our lives, we do have to have some measure of power. And I think the knee-jerk reaction is to say, well, power is dangerous. It could cause hurt. It could cause rage, which we could tell, the character was really weighed down with. But I feel that if used correctly, um, power can be used to avoid hurt and avoid rage. So I'm just curious to know, I mean, what is this hesitancy of artists, people, culture in general to embrace power?
Well, for me, I think it represents how I'm struggling with power, how I feel like I don't always have it. And I feel like I have the power when I'm in a good mood or feeling good. But during a certain part of my life, I didn't feel that way. So I think
Mhm.
it showed in my performance. Like I barely showed it. I focused on certain things, certain emotions more than others, and it was based on like how I really felt on past experiences.
Hmm. Thank you. Yeah, I really like that response because it almost speaks to what Joy just said in that, these emotions are not concrete entities. There is a sense of fluidity within all of them. So maybe this character was avoiding power because she felt powerless at the time. Um, and I really appreciated that enriching sort of reflection on these different relationships with the words.
Mm-hmm.
I have a question for Brittany.
Mm-hmm.
So it was very interesting to me that you had the mixture that you had of the objects that you put on your body versus the ones that you tied to your legs and to your arms and stuff, and that what I found curious was the sort of architectural elements. You, like I said before, you used them and went back to them, and had this sort of interplay with them. I'm curious as to how you chose which objects you would use with the twine and why you chose those specific. Clearly you put a lot of thought into this. So there's a reason why you chose the objects and the ones you chose with the string. So I would love to hear about that, because that was very, it was beautiful to watch you like navigate those objects.
Mm-hmm. So this kind of series I would call like a body sculpture. And my original performance pieces I would call face sculptures, and they were based on objects I had around the home. And so I tried to use objects I had around the house, like the water bottles. And they weren't filled with water, so they were light. So I would use them for change. I would use the lighter objects for things that are more positive, and the heavier objects for like things that weigh me down, like the rage and the grief. And so basically, it was objects that I found around the house. I did try to think about objects. I went to Walmart, Target, Dollar Store, and I just like looked up at Home Depot, looked up and down the aisles of like what could I represent with these emotions. But then not to get too complicated, because objects and weight and could mean a lot of different things. So I tried to simplify it. And so I kind of went based on things I had at home, like the water bottles I recycled, so I spray painted those, and then objects that I thought that would represent what I was trying to say at like Walmart. Like I went through the sports aisle and I saw like the little golf balls, and I was like, that will be good. And my performances are based on emotions and how I feel. And when I choose my objects and pieces, I also base those on how I feel when I'm at the store and my first reaction to them. And I would look up also the colors too. I looked up the meanings of different colors. And there's multiple meanings of different colors and symbolism they represent. And I try to choose the best things that represented what I felt needs to be on my pieces. But they're subject to change. Like maybe 3 years from now, I could expand this piece, change it a little bit, and there'll be different objects, different colors, or more colors. So that's what I would say.
I also really like the green, the tubular piece, right? That was for growth, if I'm remembering correctly.
Mm-hmm.
And what I found interesting about that is that you use that piece both like alongside your body and also extending out, which was very nice, because the idea of growth can be both can be both personal and structural, but it can also be the type of growth that allows you to extend out and to touch other people. And by creating this additional hemisphere around yourself with that tube, whatever they're tubes of some sort, that was very that gave a different dimension and a different movement within your body that I thought was interesting, because I think that was the only one that sort of extended out like that. So that seemed pretty. It seemed like a pretty intentional choice.
It was intentional. Those were like swimming tubes that I found in the dollar store. I try to think of growth as like green with plants, and then things extended from my body. So that's exactly what I try to do.
And Brittany, I really, for me, what was very striking was the struggle with each different type of object with fitting it onto you. And it really commented on how we, I think, easily or not so easily carry these different things, because I noticed, you know, contentment was hard to stay on you. And I think, you know, we could go through the day totally content, and, you know, just one little thing that goes wrong, maybe someone slights us, maybe someone swerves in front of us on the way to the office, and the whole day is ruined and we lose that contentment. The same thing even with power. You know, you did approach power a couple of times and those balls just fell right off, which to me is like very metaphorical for how power is easily lost once you have it, you know. And yet it's like rage and grief, once they were tethered to you, they didn't leave. Like you had to actually make a conscious decision to say, I'm going to let this rage go. I'm gonna just, you know, undo it from my body. So that was really compelling to me, because, you know, all of, you know, the positives, it was a struggle to maintain. It was a struggle to keep onto you. But, you know, those two weighty negative emotions, once they're on you, they're not they're not going to go away easily.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, I kind of saw that in the exact opposite way. Which is, I thought that with the smaller pieces for power and contentment sort of demonstrated that we can find that perhaps finding contentment that's this large object, or power that is a large object, is maybe not so easy to do, but that by focusing on small areas of empowerment and small areas of contentment, and sort of sprinkling that about, that was something that was maybe like more, I don't know, more realistic, or that those were things that you could focus on instead of having big lofty goals, but you could kind of empower yourself in small ways. So yes, exactly opposite of what you were saying.
I think both of those are there. And a lot of those things were accidents. Like the things that were like weighing me down were like stuck to me, tied to me. And now that you mentioned it, Adam, the things about power, contentment, and happiness, they fell off more than the other ones. And it's reminiscent of what I actually went through or going through, what could possibly happen in the future. I can see it both ways. Like I feel like I struggle with both of those things, and that's what I wanted my performance to show. Like it could be either way. I feel like people can relate to that as well. Um, and the main reason why I called it Unwanted Wants was because I don't have a definite like description of what this performance is. It's kind of like questions I raised for myself and what I wanted to raise to other people. Like what do we go through with people? Like what do we deal with in our own mind? What do we go through with people in our lives? Are they positive or negative? Um, do we take accountability of things that happen in our life? Do other people take kind of accountability of what's in their life or what they bring in your life? Do we allow it? And I think the unwanted things are basically what we don't want, but the wants are me um, showing you what I'm going through, but also it kind of teeters on like, am I allowing it? Do I really want it? Is it comfort? You know, if something's going a certain way and we feel a certain way for so long, and there's room for change. I don't know. I just basically, this is like representative of like what I really feel about things. Like if I'm going through something and there's a way to change, but it's still kind of hard to change it for the positive because you're so comfortable in that certain feeling you're feeling, your emotion you're feeling. So it's like, do we want it? Do we allow it? Is it ours? Is it someone else's? Like, what is this thing you're going through? And I remember when my first performance, I raised a bunch of questions like, how do you feel? What do you feel? Do you allow people's baggage to weigh you down? Are you weighing yourself down? Have you dealt with what you created? Is it you? Was it them? And I have like all these questions. for people to think about and for myself to think about. So I think that you're both right in what you saw.
I've kind of back up with that to follow up. What was also interesting is that hurt and rage, which are the two, I don't know, most embodied of all of the emotions that you have on there. Those are the ones that like we feel in our body, or at least I do in my body most. Those are the things that were not attached to your body. Like those were the things that you had to attach to yourself, and I found that very interesting because, like I said, it's kind of easiest for us to imagine, like, we know what pain, right? It was a rage and hurt. We know what those feel like in our body, but I don't know. I just didn't know if you wanted to comment on that at all.
I don't really think I've thought about, because I guess the other emotions were like Velcro to me and the other ones were tied to me. I just wanted to show, like, it's literally tying me down, it's weighing me down. I can't even walk straight. You can see the discomfort in my body and in my face. That's really what I wanted to show the most. And how the other ones were just light and they just sit on me. And I could walk better with those things.
I wanted to dig a little bit, Brittani, into your movement practice, because it wasn't as evident in this piece, but you do have experience with movement, specifically in the field of dance. And this question is kind of dance specific, so I was hoping John would be here, but I'm going to see if maybe both you and Joy can unpack this a little bit. So John and I, we've talked a lot about the field of dance because he's a dancer, I'm a dancer. And a lot of times an artist will undertake, and when I say artist, I mean a choreographer, they'll undertake or appear to undertake a very difficult, heady subject matter. But the result is really, another piece of abstract dance that doesn't really reflect the subject matter or the process that it took to get there. And, I'll be honest, my choreography definitely falls into that category. I could be exploring something significant internally or externally, but it comes out in my usual style of, florid, flowy dance movement. And I'm actually okay with that at this point in my creative life. But I guess I'm curious to know, in dance, why do you think there is such a hesitancy to really approach a subject matter head on, like, say, a performance artist?
Head on, you mean like obvious, like what you're trying to say? For me, it's because like a lot of things I do, especially in performance, is like so personal, and I may not want to talk about it because this performance I don't think I did performance for a while, and I had these things I was going through, and I wanted to like relieve it. And so I came up with performance to relieve it, but I didn't want to get too into detail of what it was exactly or who it was about, because it is about specific people. And so for me, yeah, I may not approach it head on because I want to express it, but I want to also protect that part of that experience in my life, or protect the people, or protect my feelings, but still show it. So I'm trying to balance it in a way.
Well, see, I feel like you did attack it head on. And I feel
Okay.
like if this were a modern dance piece by, a choreographer, I feel like Joy and I would have not read the subtext that we did in interpreting your piece. So I actually feel that you were very direct and clear with your messaging.
I wanted to be clear, but also I wanted to protect certain things at the same time. So I'm glad that you did what was clear for people. So yeah.
Dance has a hard time with politics because we use words to talk about politics, and so if the traditional dance canon, as it were, doesn't use words, or it uses text begrudgingly almost, right? the choreography is forced to invoke iconography and sort of tropes to tell a story that doesn't exactly articulate the nuances of what the choreographer is probably trying to express. And so I think that there's a lot to be done in dance. I'm very interested in this topic actually, so I'm kind of glad you brought it up. I think that there's a lot that can be done with dance, whether it's through text or words or what have you, to explore that, because a lot of people haven't really tried to do that. I think you're right that dancers kind of shy away from that. So I think that there's some really exciting opportunities with that.
Yeah, and it's so interesting because I feel like dance is such an embodied practice. You know, dance is the only art form where the practitioners live in our instrument. You know, this is our tool. And so it's interesting to me that we never quite break into that human territory that I think, Brittani, you did tonight. So here's just another generic question about the field of arts. But when I see your work, Brittani, and when I see the work of performance artists in general, I come back to this concept of interdisciplinary work, because I feel like you are drawing from different mediums. So obviously you have the visual aspect, you have the textual aspect, you have the movement aspect. So for someone who quite hasn't, converted to the wonderful things that a performance artist can say, what do you think a performance artist can accomplish that maybe a performer, singer, actor, dancer, musician can't accomplish in their own singular discipline?
I would think the first thing I would think of is that a performer is telling a story of someone else, and a performance artist is telling their own story. And I feel like I'm comfortable with both. I'm comfortable telling someone else's story and taking their direction and exploring their thoughts and ideas, and exploring my thoughts and ideas through their thoughts and ideas. And also, I love exploring my own things. So I think that would be the main difference, is that who's telling the story. And I would think that the performer, if they are performing based on someone else's story, maybe try to, I'm pretty sure there's something they can pull from their own life, like acting. There's something they can pull from their own life to create that character, to bring more into that character for themselves based on someone else's story. So just try to relate yourself with that. And there's something you can relate to an experience. It's just something as simple as like, oh, this story that somebody's trying to explain, it makes them sad, and you've been sad about something. Just try to I feel like it's similar to acting that performers have to go through. Just drawing from experiences and emotions it's all about being vulnerable, I think, in different ways.
I think that what's interesting for performance art is that it's not as limited by disciplines as
I think that too.
Visual arts, right? And so that's what makes it tricky to determine what exactly is performance art, because your piece demonstrated, it has movement, it has sculpture, it has text, all these sorts of things. And what I see when I get to see works like yours, Brittani, and others that I get to see and participate in, is that all of the artists in all of these different disciplines are very much fighting against what their discipline tells them they can and cannot do. And so I think, to Adam's point, there is a lot of interdisciplinary where we're seeing more and more dancers questioning, do I just have to dance here? Is there not something more I can add to this? And actors are doing the same thing. Of course, we see with football and all that. But I think that there are a lot of really talented artists who are interrogating, why can't a dancer do more, talk more politically, for example, like you brought up. So I think that that's what's so exciting about performance art.
Mm-hmm. And I feel like I'm more of a mover, a performer than a speaker. So I really love performance because it allows me to express myself without explaining myself. You can just kind of witness an experience I have by me recreating it. Or maybe I'm experiencing it as I'm doing it. I really like that. I have a lot of freedom in performance art.
Thank you. And I just want to jump into an extension of this question, and it's the last question of the evening. Um, I, I really like this piece because we've talked a lot about like the personal, and you could also explode this to the macro level and talk about, you know, society's relationships and politics relationships with each of these words. So I'm curious to know from both of you, you know, we live in Houston, it's a thriving art city. But in general, you know, I do think artists and patrons and funders and all aspects of the arts ecosystem, we do consume a lot of art that is apolitical or politically neutral. Um, or work that is entertaining, primarily for entertainment. Um, what would be, because we are going to enter at the end of the night into a new presidential cycle, what would be your call to action going into whatever decision the American people decide tonight for artists of all disciplines to say what they're going to say?
That's a tough question. Um, I'm not even sure how to answer that. It's tough. It's really tough. I try not to bring politics into my artwork. Um, it's hard. There's a lot of issues, a lot of things that need to be resolved and fixed, and just stay true to your beliefs. No matter who's in office, just stay true to what you believe in. Fight for it. Be your true, authentic self. Just keep doing the same work, no matter who's in office. Just keep doing the same work and keep fighting for your rights and keep fighting for what you deserve. I don't know. It's hard.
Thank you.
I think that performance is unique as a practice because it gathers people together. So even though we're not here together, we are gathered together. There's some sort of engagement between performer and the audience, however you want to define those terms. And that because of that, performance can play this really unique role in how where gathering happens and how it happens. And so I think that in as much as there are a lot of very difficult things that communities are grappling with right now that we will all get to hear a lot about tomorrow on the news, right? But that we do have this, if I feel like there's a call, it's that we should continue to, in whatever way we can, gather people. And by gathering, not just the people who we normally gather with, but to think about how performance can gather all different types of diverse groups of people. Because one of the strengths, if we're going back to Adam's comment about politics and language, is that sometimes in performance we do not have the words that mistake what our intentions are, right? So sometimes through that lack of language, we can connect with people in ways that are incredibly fruitful and very meaningful. And so I think that that's how I feel as a performer. That's what I feel like my call to action is.
Yeah, I would say the same thing. Instead of telling you, I would just show you, and you can take what you can from it.
Well, thank you so much, Brittany. I look forward to the day when you and I can like hang out again and enjoy a margarita.
Yeah, margarita, yes.
Enjoy. It was a pleasure meeting you, getting to know
Yes.
you, and speaking with you. And thank you so much to everyone who tuned in. This concludes night 2 of the Houston Fringe Festival. We are back tomorrow night with Brittany Bass in a new dance work. And so with that, I want to wish everyone a great night, and hopefully soon we find ourselves in a better tomorrow. Thank
Yes.
you.
Thank you all too.